Welcome to this ESP tutorial called Your First Seating Plan. In this clip we will show you all the steps necessary for the initial setup, all the way through to your students being in the right places and you being ready for your first lesson. Your first window is to select the screen size. The four options are small phone, small tablet and large tablet. A large phone corresponds to anything around the size of an iPhone 6. A small tablet corresponds roughly to a 7-inch tablet as opposed to a 10-inch or an iPad. Simply select the one that corresponds to your device and you'll be through to your first data entry window. And here you will tell the system a few details about yourself. Your title, first name, surname. You will then need a PIN number to secure the system if you do not have thumbprint recognition. And then finally a user code if there are any codes which are used to identify you within the data. In this case mine is STM. It's important to note that help for any of the windows within the ESP system is found by clicking the button in the bottom left hand corner. In the next window we start to define some of the school's terminology. As every institution can have its own way of naming things, ESP allows you to tailor those names to suit your institution. In this instance you can define how you would like to be referred to, along with the entity name for both yourself and those you teach. For the purposes of this system, an entity is a collective name for something. In this case, teachers and students. In the next screen we start to describe your institution in a bit more detail. We start off with the institution name, and then we can select some of the group names for the structures that make up our organisation. In this case, a group of classes forms a year group, a group of year groups forms a key stage, and a group of key stages forms a school. It is possible to define these structures in more detail in other parts of the system, but this is plenty for now. Finally, we select whether we are using a 1-week or a 2-week timetable before moving on to the next window. Here we are showing one of the key features of the ESP system, which is its location-based security. And the first part of this is to define the location of your organisation. You can do this by either clicking the phone location button here, or by clicking the map button and entering the postcode of your organisation. You can adjust the mark position by centering it on the map and then clicking Set Marker. Once you are happy that this is correct, you can click on Save. It's important to know though that any future change to this location will scrub all of the data from the device. This is done as a security measure should you lose your phone or tablet. This then brings us to our checklist page where we are now ready to start uploading data. The column on the left shows all of the various data types, and selecting any one of these will give you various options depending on the data you have available. In this example we have a CSV file with our students' details and groups, and we also have a zip file with all of their pictures. This is done via your OneDrive account. If we first select the type of account that we have and then fill in our login details, the first time we do this the application will create a folder on the root directory of your OneDrive account. Once you have transferred your files into this folder, you will then be able to see them through this screen here. In this first instance it will look for all of the CSV files. Once this is downloaded, it will check for the CSV folder. Please be aware that this can take a few minutes to download as there can be some big files. Once this is complete, you'll be taken to the file interface page. The system will read the first line of the data and display the various fields in this right hand column. And then define which information is being entered. If there is a row of titles, you'll need to define that here. The actual order of the data in the file doesn't matter, because you can adjust which pieces of information are located where by entering the correct letter in this column on the left. And then you will need to select the date format that matches the data you have. In order to make sure that the students are correctly identified, you should be giving their full name, surname and date of birth, or a unique student identification number. Hit the Upload to Database button and the system will run through creating new student records and assigning them to new groups. When we return to the checklist page we can see the ticks in place showing that we have student and group records. We can now go on to entering our timetable information. The first stage of this is to manually enter the sessions that make up the day. In this first column we enter the session name and then its start and finish time. The system will allow you to enter more than one set of timings which will be applicable to different groups, or even to different days of the week. In this case though we're just going to have one set of timings that apply to all groups. Clicking Save will then create all of the sessions necessary to put our timetable in place. And in order to do this, we return to the checklist page where we can select the timetable and the bulk upload option. Here we are downloading a CSV file of the timetable list in exactly the same way as we did before. And again, once the file is downloaded, the first line of it is red and the values from this first line can be seen in the right hand column. We can then make sure that our data is in the right place before selecting the format for the day. In this case, we've not selected a column for the teacher ID because all of the entries are actually our own. The system though will automatically check to make sure that this is the case. Clicking the Upload to Database button will then process the file and create all of the sessions. If it wasn't able to recognize any of the session names, then these will be reported once the file is processed. This brings us back to the checklist page, although we are now free to go back to the home page and then see our timetable for the first time. And by using this drop-down box, we can select any group or room or other teacher. Clicking on any of the individual sessions will take us to that room view. In this case, the system detects that we haven't created one yet, and so it will ask if we want to do so now. In this system, rooms are described using a grid system. So the first thing you have to do is describe the number of spaces across and down that you need to describe your room. In this example, we're going to use a grid size of 10 by 10. So now we have our grid, all we need to do is to click on the places where the seats are. So each clicked button represents a seat and each unclicked button represents a space between them. Once we have saved our layout, we then have the option to move to the next page where we can create our first seating plan. Here we can see our group and room, and shown here is the number of students in the group. The students are shown in alphabetical order, although you can toggle between them using this previous and next buttons. Here we are in the assign mode, so all we need to do to place our student in their seat is click on the relevant place. We can then repeat the process for each of the students and our seating plan is complete. If we're not happy with any of the positions, we can switch to swap mode, and this allows us to select 2 places and then swap them over. This means that we can change an existing plan within a few seconds. Clicking the Save button then takes us through to our lesson management window, where our seating plan becomes a working interface to help us run our lessons. The various tools on the left will be explained in other clips. Across the top bar you will have access to different types of information about the student, and the first of these is the personal information, although there is much more information that can be added, which will be shown in subsequent videos. So there we have it, our first seating plan in place in around about 10 minutes. Thanks for listening.